Now, many of you have never heard of Tom Caldwell. A lot of you have. If you haven't heard of him yet, you're going to hear about him now. I've interviewed him a few times in the past. He's a terrific friend and a man with expertise that the rest of us could never combined produce. He's the chairman of Caldwell Securities, and he is a man who loves the Lord with all of his heart, soul, mind, and strength. But a lot of people listen when Tom Caldwell speaks, especially on Bay Street. Welcome, Tom.
Good to be here,
Good
Jim.
to have
Good
you
to see
back.
you again. Yes.
Well, yeah, you know, Tom, I gotta say, I keep hearing news about you buying up, it seems, all of the seats available in the stock markets around the world. Or stock exchanges. You've been doing this for some time. Until I heard about you doing this the first time, I didn't know you could buy seats in the stock exchange. That's how knowledgeable I am.
Well, it was a fairly arcane investment. We had seen what had happened on the Toronto Exchange and the Vancouver Exchange, which gave us a degree of expertise on other exchanges. For example, I went to New York and we started to accumulate memberships on the New York Stock Exchange with a view of their becoming a public company. So, you know, Canadians we were the largest or second largest owner of the New York Stock Exchange prior to their going public, and so it was a successful activity.
Now, whatever got you onto this? Like, you're just lying in bed one night and thinking, you know what? Maybe the stock exchange is going to go public. I should buy a few seats there. And I mean, how did it come to you?
It was being wrong. I keep telling our portfolio managers, for example, the Toronto Stock Exchange decided they were going to become a public company as opposed to a private old boys club. We were all old and boys, kind of thing. So I opposed it because it was who I was. It was part of my persona. And one night I had a sort of an epiphany. I thought, I'm wrong. So I just shut up for a few weeks and then went around and went the other way. And I think it confused a lot of people. And I always tell our portfolio managers, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. There is with staying wrong.
Right.
And that turned out to be a very profitable exercise. And we took what's called almost intellectual arbitrage, and we went to other markets in the world and acquired exchanges with a view of they're doing exactly the same thing. And that occurred in New York in a very large way.
Well, you were prescient, as they say, a bit of a Canadian version of Walter Buffett. What's your view of what's happening in the world economically right now? I mean, it looks like the Eurozone may be melting down. If it does, the domino effect is going to be huge. Here in North America, we're going to feel it. The whole world will feel it. It seems to be maybe the most pressing crisis the world faces right now. Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Well, I'm an incurable optimist. Yeah. I was giving a talk recently at a Catholic school, Cardinal Newman School in East End of Toronto, and I said, I know God's will in my life, and one of the young people said, well, how do you know that? It's when I don't have any choice. And the thing with Europe is they will solve their problem more or less because they do not have any choice. Now, tomorrow, we're going to hear very shortly what kind of game plan they have. We are reaching almost the end of the age of entitlement. Governments, corporations have been spending, not corporations the same degree, but in salary, but governments have been spending massive amounts of money, not paying any attention to the debts that are accumulating, basically borrowing from our children's futures all over the world. And we've reached the end of that period because they can't borrow any more money. So now we have to go back to basic values that the generation ahead of us had. So essentially it's a positive exercise. It's painful, and it's going to be painful and scary for quite a while, but we will work our way through it. And America has its own bag of snakes as well. So Europe first, but America also has to come to grips with it.
Well, we see the demonstrations in Greece, and some of these other countries as the austerity begins to find its way to the grassroots. Do you foresee a day when maybe in the States and Canada there might be unrest on the streets because we're having to pay the piper and face up to the fact that the era of entitlement is over?
Well, I think so. I think part of that is the Occupy movement, more in the U.S. than in Canada. And they have some validity. I will say that. You look at insane compensation packages for U.S. bankers, 100 million plus, after being bailed out by the government. There's a lot of upset at the tremendous dichotomy between wealth and poverty in America. You know, I'm a capitalist pig, but even from my own perspective, I can say, you know, there's a reasonableness that's lacking there. So I think you're going to see some of that. There is a big gulf between rich and poor in America, less so in Canada, and I think we have to consider that. And I think leaders have to behave responsibly, not only corporately, but governmentally. It's easy for governments to just grant benefits out and tax the public. but we're reaching the end of that game. We can't be promising and not delivering.
Why is it that the Canadian banking system is seen as the best in the world?
Well, first off, our mortgage system is better in that you have to have a deposit on a house. Your loan is recourse. If you don't pay the mortgage, they can chase you for the balance of it. In America, there were non-recourse. Interest payments were tax deductible. And you could walk away. A lot of people own 3 or 4 houses. Nobody bothers to mention this because you had no downside. And if the market went up, you sold and made a profit. It went down, you just walked away. The subprime, there was tremendous pressure in America on behalf of governments for banks to make subprime loans. And nobody mentions that. That was the genesis of that problem. We didn't have the same pressure from governments to make loans to people who clearly could not pay for them. So I think part of it was that. Part of it was an inherent conservatism, and I think better regulation. But the Canadian banks are, I keep referring to Canada as the Switzerland of the North at this point in time.
You know, Chuck Colson, when I interviewed him recently, referred to Toronto as New York City run by the Swiss.
Yes. Actually, it was Peter Ustinov's line. That's
was that his line?
Where it originally came from. I found that out just recently.
Well, there you go. So okay.
Well, there is an order. I live in New York and I live in Toronto. But there's an interesting thing in Toronto. We're multicultural, even more so than America. But in America, there's a stratification. There's not the same stratification in Toronto.
Now, this is the Christmas season. Tell me, Tom, for you, is it Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas?
You've got to be kidding me.
No, now I'm giving you the opportunity to do your rant.
Well, it's funny. It's really funny. An MP sent an invitation to our office inviting me to a seasonal gathering, and my associate, Liz Namovsky, telephoned. She said, Mr. Caldwell doesn't go to seasonal gatherings. And he said, well, it's a Christmas party. No, it didn't say that in the invitation. He won't be coming. This is the greatest season of the year. This is the greatest holiday of the year, not just from a religious perspective, but this is the foundation of our society, our laws, our sense of compassion, being your brother's keeper, forgiving. All of that, whether you're a practicing Christian or not, came from the arrival of Christ and his teachings. And you know, it's funny. I keep telling people if they wish me season's greetings, I'm pretty clear on this. I said, I don't like people diminishing Christmas, and I don't like people trying to steal it. This is about Christmas. And, you know, one of the things I find really quite humorous, I spent a lot of time, as you know, in the Middle East, and it's really interesting to me that my most frequent Christmas greetings come from my Muslim or Jewish friends, not from politically correct Christians, theoretically. So this is Christmas, and I think we have to go back to that. It's not an offense to say Merry Christmas to people.
You know, when Kathy and I lived in Jerusalem for those 7 years, every Christmas we had a group of about 30 Israelis who insisted on coming to our house because we had a Christmas tree, and insisted on singing Christmas carols because they loved them.
Absolutely.
You know, and so there was no apology there. 2 minutes ago, Tom, what do you do at Christmas time? What do you do to celebrate?
Well, I think we do have a company party, which and it is a Christmas party, and we have every denomination represented, and people come, and you know, we appreciate that they come, and they want to come, and it's almost a family gathering. So we do enjoy that, and then we do enjoy the time my wife Dorothy and I have with our grandchildren, and so that's always an enjoyable time as well.
You're seen as a very successful man. Do you have downtime? Do you have rest time? Do you have fun time?
Oh, sure. I mean, I try to get away a little bit and go down south, and I walk on the beach and smoke a cigar occasionally if my wife's not around, and in the summers, you know, I do ride my motorcycle a little bit. So I have a few juvenile activities that keep me entertained.
Yeah, you know, I often think of you riding a motorcycle because, as you know, Kathy and I also ride, and you know, the secular mindset is when you reach a certain level of affluence, you want to protect yourself against any danger that might come your way, that might, you know, derail you. You keep taking risks.
Well, one of the things I've learned a long time ago, now not blind or wild risks, but if you don't take risks, sooner or later the risks come looking for you anyway. So and when I'm feeling particularly fragile, I do ride around. I have an older pickup truck I drive around in, so I do enjoy that.
You also have a pickup truck?
Yes, I did.
Well, see, I do too. I mean, you and I, you're a brother.
I've just met me. I just met me.
Except you've got more hair than I do. Well, Tom, it's always a joy to have you here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you.
A lot of us admire you from afar. You're really doing an exemplary work, and also representing, by example, a man of powerful faith in a powerful position. And we wish you the best of Christmas time.
You have a great Christmas as well, Jim, and your family. God bless you, mate.
Back with more after this, friends.